Okay, multimedia portfolio students, here's our next WIMBA Classroom Archive session. This session is specifically to talk about the right page of your first case study facing pages, which is your personal brand development. Remember, the left side of your page number 2 in your portfolio is creating your personal business or personal design logo, and the two-sided business card, the letterhead, and the envelope. Remember, we're doing a brand study, so when you're developing or designing your logo, I want to see a one-color version, I want to see a two-color version, and I want to see a full-color or four-color version. This section specifically is to talk about the right side of your first branding case study, which is the use of your personal logo applied to what we call swag or personal leave behind marketing pieces. As you can see by this student sample, they chose to do a t-shirt, skateboard, and a matchbook because this particular student named their multimedia portfolio or their little design samples as a matchstick design. So this is page 3 in our portfolio study or our first case study. It's also week 3. Remember, week 1 was the dream job paper and the self-assessment of your design skills and where you're at. Week 2 was the personal development of your personal identity mark of your multimedia portfolio, your design business or your name or your initials or something that we could brand your portfolio by. Which brought us into our week 3, which is the design and development of the shell of your portfolio, setting it up in InDesign per the last WIMBA Classroom archive that I had set up. And now we're into exploring the application of your logo into some real-world merchandising type of environment. Remember that although we're mocking these up using Photoshop and the vector logo from Illustrator, these are things that actually could be created and handed out as branding opportunities in the marketplace. We want to mock them up as realistic and seamless as we can to make it appear as if even if we decide or you decide not to create something to get your name out there in your portfolio, it looks like you have done that. So, okay, so let's get into the process of taking a high-res image of a merchandising item or product and applying your logo to it. The first thing I've done is I've found a high resolution of a thumb drive, which is a really common way for companies to get their logo or their brand out there. This is a red thumb drive. I went into Google and searched for a red thumb drive, and I looked for and organized my search by large image, and I found this little promotional piece. This actual photograph has been used over and over on many product placement sites with their own personal logo on it. Now, remember, we're going to be placing our logo in place of the logo that's on this thumb drive, so we have to remove the logo from this thumb drive. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to use a selection tool, and we have to select it. So I'm going to go ahead and circle this area of the logo. Because I need to get rid of that. I have to replace it with what appears up here to make it look seamless, like there isn't a logo on it yet. Now, one of the new features in CS5 of Photoshop is the ability to do what is called content aware, which means it kind of figures out what the pixels look like around the selection area, and it fills the selection area in with it. It works really well in kind of small areas. You got to kind of test it because it is a mathematical application. Some areas work better with larger selection areas, and some areas sample and content aware fill in smaller areas. So we're going to try kind of a smaller selection where we just kind of circle over it, and we're going to click OK. And look there, it made a pretty seamless replacement of the pixels. If you really looked closely, you can see a little bit of speckling in there where it's sampled from different areas, but it looks pretty seamless there. So now we have to get our logo on this thumb drive to include it as one of our pieces in our portfolio. Now, the first thing I'm going to do before I apply the logo, I'm going to clean up this image a little bit. Now, notice over here in our layers palette that our background is locked. I like to double click on that layer, and I like to make it a layer 0 and rename it to thumb drive. And you'll notice that it's no longer locked. The reason that's important is I want this to be a transparent image. So when I bring it into my InDesign file, it's transparent around the edges, so I can add shadows and different things to it. So I can't have that white border or background around the image. So I'm going to go in here, and using my my magic wand tool, I'm going to go in and change my tolerance. Remember, the tolerance is at the top. I'm going to get in here, and I'm going to remove the background from my image. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to get into the space in between the ring there. Let's see. I'm not crazy about the shadow. I can add my own shadow in InDesign. So now I have a transparent image that I can use to import in or place into my InDesign file when I want to work on page number 3 and create something that sits right on my unique background that I created. So now I'm ready for my logo. So I have my transparent background. I have my logo removed from the original product, and now I'm going to go into Illustrator, and I'm going to copy over my logo. Here's a logo that I created for a company, and so I'm going to bring it over to my Photoshop file. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a big selection box over it, and I'm going to do Edit Copy or Command or Control C, and I'm going to copy that logo, and then I'm going to go back into Photoshop, and I'm going to paste my logo. Now, it's going to ask me for the format for pasting, and remember that a smart object keeps its scalability, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK for my smart object, and now here it is. Remember, when you're scaling in Photoshop, you should hold the Shift key down, so I'm going to scale it to the size that I need, and I'm going to rotate it to the perspective that I need. So let's go and scale it down a little bit so that I know that it's going to fit inside of my thumb drive. Go ahead and hit Enter or Return to apply it to my layer, which is now has a Vector Smart name to it, which I'm going to go over to my Layers palette, and I'm going to rename to Engage Logo. All right, now, when you have a smart object placed in, you'll notice that things like perspective, distort, and warp are not active. You cannot transform those in perspective or distort with it a smart object. So what I like to do is I like to go over here and I like to do what is called rasterizing my layer or turn it into pixels that I can manipulate. I like to right-click or control-click over in my Layers palette, which gives me rasterized layers. So here it is. So it doesn't look any different, but it now no longer has that little icon that says it's a smart object or a vector object. The reason that's important is once I scale it to fit my product or my object, I'm going to go ahead and make that not a smart object anymore or a rasterized or bitmap layer, because now I can go in and I can do things like distort, perspective, and warp. And that gives me the opportunity to create something that feels like it's sitting on the thumb drive. So I'm going to pinch this in a little bit for perspective, and that gives it the slant that I need. I'm going to go in, and I like to use all three. So now I'm going to go into warp, and you're going to see what happens as I start to pinch this in a little bit and pinch this in just a little bit. And now I'm going to apply a distort. And distort will actually just allow me to manually pinch in the corners to create a image that feels like it's kind of sitting on there a little bit. So there we go. So now I have something that looks like it's laying on or printed on the thumb drive, and I can also go over and double click in my blue area, and if I wanted to, I could make it feel like it's raised off of the thumb drive ever so slightly by adding a 1 pixel by 1 pixel shadow. And now it feels like it's part of my thumb drive. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to save this now as my Photoshop file. Now the reason that's important is because now if I go back to my InDesign file, and I'm just going to crop this out of the way so you can see what it would look like if I imported my thumb drive in to a background. So I'm just going to cover up the student's sample with my own sample, and we'll just make it a light blue so you can see what it looks like. So now if I place my new thumb drive, and I'm going to turn on the import option so you can see what it looks like. And now my thumb drive looks nice and seamless. I'm just going to pinch this down a little bit so you can see what it looks like. And now it looks nice and seamless. So there's the process for creating marketing materials, promotional items, leave behind items using your personal logo and using high quality, high resolution product images that have the logo of the current company on the image removed and your image copied from Illustrator, pasted into Photoshop as a smart object, scaled, perspective, and distort applied to them, and saved as Photoshop files, and then with background removed or transparency, it's imported into InDesign as a nice seamless object for your portfolio. I hope this exercise helps you as you tackle the page 3 of your portfolio, applying your personal logo to promotional leave behind items. Good luck. Let me know if you have any trouble.